All right. I wanted to go over today 4 ways a narcissist will tell on themselves. And if you pay attention, they do really do this. It might be subtle, it might be quick, but it does absolutely happen a lot. But I'm also going to give people an opportunity to ask them questions while they're here too. That's one of the reasons I like going live, so I can talk with people and have a little bit of Q&A as I go, as opposed to just doing a straight monologue video. I do plenty of them as shorts, and I do plenty of them as longer form videos too. But the advantage to the live streams is getting interaction, getting some community going, and getting to answer questions that people have. But the first way narcissists will subtly tell on themselves is they'll come right out and say it. And it might seem like a throwaway comment. For example, many in my life have said, "Oh, I'm crazy." And they'll say that. They'll say they're crazy, but they don't really say why they're crazy, but they say they're crazy. Another thing I hear them say a lot is, "Oh, I'm bipolar." Or they'll say they're codependent too. And just because they say these things doesn't mean they really are. They've just convinced themselves that they are. But that's one thing. If you hear them say they're crazy, "Oh, I'm bipolar," or something like that, or they might even come out and say, like someone said in the comment section, they had said, "Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to be faithful when we're married." And to me, like, that's a major red flag. And the person noticed that as a red flag. Like, that's an interesting thing to say. Why the heck would they ever say that? And yeah, there's no reason for them to say that, but they do say things like that. And it's something to not ignore when it happens. Don't ignore that. And if you get a gut feeling, something doesn't seem right here. What should I do? Well, trust that gut feeling, because the longer you're in a relationship with someone like that, that's one of the things they do to people. They get people to no longer trust their gut. That's what happens in the gaslighting process and the process of coercive control. People no longer trust themselves anymore, and they start to unsubscribe from their own perception of reality, and then they subscribe to the narcissist's distorted perception of reality. That is not what you want. You want to unsubscribe from the narcissist's distorted version of reality and stay subscribed to your own. And yes, Melissa says the lies never stop. And that's absolutely correct. They do not stop. I'm going to do a video soon also about the different ways a narcissist will lie. There are several different ways, and it's similar to how they make you look crazy to other people in a smear campaign, or when they're conditioning or grooming people to believe that you're the problem or to believe that the narcissist is the victim. Very similar tactics. But the second way a narcissist will try to, or will subtly tell on themselves, is they will project and they will accuse you of what they're guilty of themselves. A lot of us say in the space, a narcissist's accusations are actually confessions. And this is why we say this. Narcissists are also notoriously paranoid as well. And one of the reasons they're paranoid is they think people will do the same things they do. For example, if a narcissist is prone to cheating, they're going to think, "Oh, everyone is like me, and they're also cheating. They're flirting with people via text, they're on dating apps, they are in people's inboxes on Facebook, Instagram, etc." Narcissists literally think, "Yeah, I'm doing all these things, and I expect them to be doing these things too. I expect you to be doing the things that I'm doing." And then they'll rant and rave and say, "You're cheating. Who's this person? You must be flirting." And this also extends into being very controlling about what you do. Maybe they will put a tracking device on your car. Maybe they'll demand that you call them every hour on the hour if you ever go out with your friends. And they're also going to give you grief for even going out with your friends a lot of times too. But if the narcissist is cheating, they're going to start accusing you. "You must be cheating on me." And in reality, it's the narcissist cheating on you. The same thing with flirting, the same thing with any other kinds of accusations too. And it's something to not ignore. Pay attention to this. So Divinely Safe says, "Projection was hard for me to wrap my head around." Yeah, it is hard at first to wrap your head around it, but once you begin to see it, then you're not going to be able to unsee it. And that's the beauty of this whole space here when we talk about narcissism and narcissistic behaviors. Once you see, you cannot unsee, even if you wanted to. And that's the gift of self-awareness. But the cheating is a common accusation, the flirting is a common accusation, or maybe, oh, you're going to leave me. That's another common accusation. They might act like they're afraid you're going to leave them. Meanwhile, they might drop you on a dime. Meanwhile, they might just discard you. But it's just another example. So Lady Tarantino says, yep, that sounds like my entire dating history. Uh-oh. Hopefully not anymore. Hopefully it's only good dudes now, or women. They do hack into phones. I've been accused of cheating, so I show him the proof of his cheating. Yes. Even if you show them foolproof proof, like undeniable, caught red-handed proof, they'll still find a way to deny it. And the tricky part about it is they can sound pretty convincing. They sound convincing when they are lying like that and gaslighting like that, which can kind of create a gaslighting effect because they do sound very sure of themselves. Or their other trick is they'll just blame you. If they do admit something, they'll say, well, it's your fault anyway. It's your fault anyway because you didn't do this, or you weren't giving me enough affection, or fill in the blank with some other nonsense reason that they'll say. But they're not going to admit it. Everything they do, like the short I made the other day, everything they do is about power, control, managing their image, narcissistic supply, and avoiding accountability. Can't forget that part. That part, everything they do is going to be about those things. The third way a narcissist will subtly tell themselves is, and this is a sneaky one too, and it's not something to ignore. And if you get a gut feeling about this, trust that gut feeling. But what they'll start to do is they'll say, my friends, they're all horrible people because they're cheating on their wives, or they're cheating on their husbands, or everyone's always drinking and doing drugs at this place, but not me. I'm not doing that. But all these guys are. Can you believe it? Can you believe what my coworkers are doing? Can you believe what the people at church are doing? Can you believe what the people at the yoga studio are doing? And what they're doing here is telling on themselves. They are doing these things that they're saying their friends and whoever else are doing. And they're also gauging your reaction a little bit too, to say, oh, I wonder what they're going to make of this. I wonder what they're going to think about this. And in reality, again, it's what the narcissist is doing. They'll say, oh, everyone's cheating on their wives or their husbands. They're cheating on their husbands or wives. Oh, everyone watches porn. Isn't it so great that I don't watch that? Meanwhile, if you were to ever look at their phone history, it's probably hideous. But they're doing the same things. But they'll act like they are not. They'll act like, oh, it's just these people at work. It's just these people at the golf course. It's just these people at the bar. It's just these other people I know. Can you believe my Facebook friends? And it's wild. And some of these things that they'll accuse others of doing can get pretty dark too, by the way. They might admit to crimes in this way too. They might say, oh, so-and-so is stealing money from the bar. They're stealing money from the workplace. Can you believe it? But it's the narcissist stealing money from the workplace. Or even worse, they'll accuse people of doing things to minors maybe, or maybe they'll accuse people of SA, or they'll accuse people of, what's another one they'll accuse people of? Oh, the gay thing. That's another big one they like to do too. Oh, this person's so gay. Can you believe it? Well, often it can mean the narcissist is doing those things. Is it 100%? No, not 100%, but a lot of times, at the very least, they are trying to gauge your reaction to it just to see what's going on with you. But that's a sneaky one. Pay attention to if they're saying their friends, their coworkers, maybe their other family members, they're saying they're doing these awful things. Pay attention to that. Oh, and back to this. They do hack into phones for sure. My friend Kelly, Kelly Conrad, we call her PDubs, she has an ex that does that very thing. And some of these narcissists that are tech savvy, it's an absolute nightmare because I think the average person, they do not realize how much information they can get from someone's phone. Tech savvy people in this day and age, they are way more advanced than the average person in this regard. And they can do a lot of damage via hacking, via their connections. And it's something that even us creators, I think a lot of us are even behind on it too because it's so new. But that's why I wanted to talk to my friend Kelly about it. And we did do a stream about it, but I'm going to try to have her back on again soon so she can go over it because there's clues. There's clues that they're hacking you. And this can happen even after a breakup. This happens even after a discard. The narcissist refuses to let go. They want control. And if they can't have control, at the very least, they want to torture you. At the very least, they want to make you crazy. They want to get under your skin and just be a nuisance so that you don't forget about them. But watch out for that. That's absolutely a thing. And they can wreak havoc with your passwords, doing things on your social media accounts. Not good. Yeah, not good. Not good, all of that. What is that? Hello there. But yeah, you got to watch out for when they try to hack your accounts like that. It's not good. The fourth way narcissists will subtly tell on themselves is, and it might not even be subtle at this point, but when they're drinking or under the influence of other drugs. I've always said when a narcissist drinks, a lot of times their mask can slip. And I always point to this example too. There's a great example in John Steinbeck's East of Eden. Kathy, in that book, she refuses to drink. And granted, Kathy is more than just a narcissist. She's a psychopath. She murders her parents in the book. And she knows if I drink, my mask comes off. And then I can be really mean and cruel. And this is what happens. Kathy, she goes to a cat house and she befriends the owner of the cat house, who is another woman. And this older woman really takes her under her wing and she loves her to death. And then one day they have this celebratory drink and Kathy doesn't want to do it. She's like, no, I don't want to drink. And then the woman makes her drink. And this woman, even though she's in charge of the cat house, she's still naive. She's like a nice woman, but naive. She doesn't understand what Kathy is. Kathy refuses. And then finally she gives in and she drinks it. And she can feel a little bit of anger boiling up because deep down, Kathy does not like this woman at all. Kathy is just playing her, trying to get information out of her, and she eventually wants to take her job as owner of the cat house. And then what happens is she drinks another drink, and then all of a sudden she gets really cruel to this woman, and she starts calling her fat and telling her everything that she's really thinking. And the woman's heartbroken and devastated. And then Kathy has to come up with a plan to get her to think that she dreamed this whole thing. That didn't happen. And so basically, I think she drugs her and then tells, oh, you had some bad dreams last night, didn't you? And she wasn't so sure. But the woman, because she was really thinking of Kathy as a daughter at this point, but Kathy was just playing her. Kathy was playing her, and it was brutal for this woman. And eventually, she slowly kills this older woman too. Not to give a spoiler, but it's books from the 1950s. Yeah, we're going to talk about some spoilers from a book from the 1950s, but that's what she does. But she knew the point was when she drank, the truth would come out. But the thing that happens with narcissists is they'll tell the truth when they're drinking, but then when they're sober again, they'll absolutely deny it and they'll cover it up. And that's exactly what Kathy did in the book. And in my own experience, that's what would happen too. I had an ex once. She admitted to me, oh, I'm a sugar baby and I'm getting with all these sugar daddies. Then all of a sudden, sober? Nope. I never said that. That wasn't a thing. Oh, yes, it was a thing. Yes, it was a thing. Ellie, what's shaking there? Desert Wings. Long time no chat. But yeah, so that's what she would do. She would tell on herself when she was drinking. And then if I tried to say something about it, no, that never happened. And compare and contrast this with how a borderline does it. Often borderlines, they will excuse their behavior by drinking. And they'll say, oh, I only did this because I was drinking. I only cheated because I was drinking. I only said this rotten thing because I was drinking. So they don't deny it, but they use their drinking as a scapegoat. They blame shift to drinking. And then in terms of drugs, it depends on the drug, because not all drugs are going to be the same way drinking is. Drinking can be a truth teller. The truth comes out. And that's what that expression, in vino veris, I think it's called. What's the expression? I know I'm saying it wrong. Someone has to tell me. But it's that expression, which basically says, in wine, there's truth. That's why they say that. And depending on the substance, though, if it's a drug, this is more true for than others. Eric Clapton would say, she don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie, cocaine. So cocaine would be one they tell the truth on. Other drugs, weed, I know a lot of narcissists that will smoke weed all day, so it's hard to say. And they're just as much of a jerk when they're smoking as they are when they're not smoking. And a lot of narcissists, what they'll do also, they'll be big into psychedelics. Maybe they'll be big into acid or shrooms or MDMA or what else. They'll go on ayahuasca retreats. And granted, I'm not completely against ayahuasca retreats. I'm all for people getting into some spiritual awakenings. But what happens with a lot of narcissists is they'll do them, and then they might feel some temporary empathy, but then they never get those spiritual awakenings, and they always return back to their jerk self, their selfish jerk self. They never get to a full change. And I know many narcissists off the top of my head, that's their routine. Oh, I got to do this ayahuasca ceremony. Oh, I got to do these shrooms. Oh, I got to do this acid. I got to do this ketamine. I got to do this fill in the blank. And then they just never change. And with those psychedelic drugs, it's tough because you don't know who you're dealing with when you're talking to someone on those things. But a lot of narcissists, they also like drug use, of course. They like escapism. Why? Because a lot of times they feel empty on the inside. And when they feel empty on the inside, they want to escape. So with the psychedelics, it's tough. They might feel some temporary empathy. They might try to tell you, oh, I love you so much. You're so awesome. Yeah, I love your energy. And then as soon as the drug wears off, right back to being a jerk. Right back to being exploitative, belittling, critical, demeaning, blaming you for everything. Like I said, they just don't get those permanent spiritual awakenings. Here's what I wanted to say. In wine, there's truth. In narcissists, just projection. But what's the saying? What's the saying in wine, there's truth? What's the, I'll look it up. In wine, there's truth. In vino veritas. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but I'll type it in chat. In vino veritas. I like that line. If you're with your permission, I might use that as a post there, Lady Tarantino. Any relation to Quentin, by the way? Let's see. Let's see what Full Moon Fever has to say. I feel like I've been in a hole and climbing out because my whole reality has been seriously altered. Wow, what removing myself from it has seriously been eye-opening. Are you talking about leaving a narcissist? Is that what you're talking about? And you're talking about the hole that you were in that relationship with them? I mean, because that's a very common thing. When someone's in a trauma bond, they lose themselves. They lose themselves and they start to hate the parts of themselves they once loved because the narcissist convinces them to. They say, yep, these parts of you are a problem. Because the way the narcissist sees it is anything that gets in the way of you serving them or anything that gets in the way of their control over you, that's a problem. I appreciate that. It's a good one. It made me laugh out loud. Yeah, so in those spots with a narcissist, people lose themselves. And then they've no doubt been taking a lot of criticism, belittling, everything is their fault. Narcissists will often love to point out your flaws, blame you for everything that's going wrong in the relationship. And overall, it just wears away at your sense of self esteem like sandpaper. It's obnoxious. It's obnoxious, and it's not an experience I would wish on anyone. And also, it's a very lonely experience too. I made a post the other day about how in a narcissistic relationship, some people are afraid to be single because they don't want to be lonely. But I emphasize being in a relationship with a narcissist is one of the loneliest feelings in the world. So don't ever forget that part. And here's the other thing. People leave. Not everyone stays out. But once someone's out and they stay out, I've never met somebody who regretted it. Once they stay out, I've never met someone that said, you know what? I really wish I stayed. I really wish I gave them another shot. You don't see that. I see people go back and then time goes by and they'll tell me how miserable they are, or time goes by and it just eventually just ends again later in a divorce. And then it's a messy divorce, especially if there's kids involved. And narcissists in a divorce, that's one of the biggest nightmares you'll ever experience, especially if there's kids. There is no limit to how petty, ridiculous, childish they will go. There really is no limit to that. It's obnoxious. It's like time stopped. It's like time stopped since you left, or time stopped while you were in it. I mean, if time stopped, they say time goes very quickly when you're having fun, but it can be the opposite when you're depressed and not in a good place. Time goes super slow. I mean, and that's true too. When you're in it, most people are not in a happy place when they're in those relationships. They are miserable and a shell of themselves. And you'll see pictures of them with their narcissistic partner, not smiling, grim, and just not in a good place. And then sometimes you'll see pictures of people a year or two down the line, and it's night and day, because it's a spiritual thing. When you're with someone like that, you're around someone that is constantly bombarding you with that negative energy. That's a spiritual thing. Like, that gets to your spirit. You can't be around someone like that is so dark and twisted without it impacting you. We become like the people we surround ourselves with, or at the very best, they just deplete us. And that's at the best. But that's why they say narcissistic fleas are a thing too. Narcissistic fleas are when you pick up on the behaviors of a narcissistic person that you're spending a lot of time with. I also think narcissistic fleas are probably a symptom of CPTSD. And most people develop CPTSD from a relationship with a narcissist. If you had a narcissistic parent, you're more than likely to have developed CPTSD from that as well. People that experience severe bullying in school, they also can develop CPTSD from that if it's lasting. If it's more of an isolated event, it can just be PTSD. Tracy Howard says, the person I'm dealing with is a projection machine. It's fascinating to observe once you understand their foolishness. Their accusations are very often confessions. What are their projections of? Cheating, lying, stealing? I mean, there's no limit to it. But I mean, that's really, in relationships, that's usually what it is. Maybe they're paranoid about money too. Oh, you're stealing from me, or you're hiding money from me, or you're cheating on me, or you're lying, or you're flirting, or I bet you're getting with your boss. I bet you're doing this. There's no limit to what they might accuse people of. And here's the other thing about that. If you're with someone who's constantly making those accusations, that person is not in a good place, regardless of their label anyway. Some people might get caught up on, oh, is this person a narcissist? Is this person a psychopath? Is this person a borderline? And honestly, sometimes it doesn't matter. And I understand the labels can help people too. I'm fully acknowledging that. But if they're going to be accusing you of things left and right, no, they're just not in a good place. People that, when you're in a good place with somebody, that's not how they operate. They're not going to be the kinds of people just throwing accusations around. Oh, you're cheating. Oh, you're lying. That is so emotionally immature for them to be doing that. People that are both emotionally mature, that's not how they would even go about doing that anyway. And chances are they're not going to be in a position like that either. If you're in an emotionally mature place, you have some self-awareness, it's less likely to happen for sure. Some definitely are. I mean, there's some narcissistic psychopaths out there. Absolutely. I believe, and I get myself in trouble with this, but I believe narcissism is a spectrum. For content creation's sake, we do kind of simplify it. And I don't talk about that kind of stuff sometimes because I don't want to confuse people. If I talk about some of that, it can confuse people. But I know Dr. Salerno, Dr. Simon, and I, we all believe narcissism is on the spectrum. But I've learned also that that kind of confuses people. Or even to say that it's possible for a less severe version to modify their behavior. Because they say, yeah, you're going to give people false hope if you even say that. But to which I will say, don't ever hold on to hope that someone will change. Always trust their actions first and foremost. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, what you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. And that's what he was saying. He's saying, I trust people's actions. It doesn't matter what they say. First and foremost, remember that. Trust their actions. No matter what they tell you. Oh, I'm going to therapy. Okay. Trust their actions. Oh, I promise I've changed. I'll never do that again. Okay. Trust their actions. Oh, I promise I'll be faithful. I'll never cheat again. I'll never do drugs or drink again. I'll never watch porn again. Okay. Trust their actions. First and foremost. I don't want anyone to be thinking about holding on to something that is nothing. Don't hold out hope that someone's going to change. And I get it, especially with family, whether it's kids or parents, people are more tempted to do this. Or if they really did love the narcissistic person in a romantic relationship, they're more tempted to do this. But I very, very, very rarely see that turn into a good thing. Once you notice these behaviors, I've never met someone that's actually noticed this and then all of a sudden it's improved. Now, I have seen it in some parents. I can't deny that. Some people, as I've gotten older, I have seen it. But I don't like talking about that much because, again, I don't want to confuse people. Yep, whatever bizarre, outlandish accusation they throw at you, it's a roundabout confession. Yep. It's important for people to understand these and to go over them again. The first one, like I said, was they'll subtly tell on themselves. It might seem like a throwaway comment, but they'll say it directly. And they'll say things like, oh, I'm crazy. Or, oh, I must be bipolar. Or, I'm a terrible person. I'm really a piece of work. And you'll be like, huh? What did you say? And they might deny saying it. Or they might say they're joking. But whatever they said, they were not joking. And they're just lying to you when they deny it like that. The second way is the projection. Narcissist accusations are very often confessions. And Dr. Grande, he has a great expression about that too. He says, to a narcissist, the truth is offensive to them. That's why they lie. And what he means by that is narcissists have a grandiose sense of self. They feel superior. And if the truth of their accomplishments does not match their level of grandiosity, they're not going to like it. And they'll lie. They'll lie instead to match their internal feeling with what they're going to say the reality is. But that's just nonsense, right? But I really like that expression from Dr. Grande. He used to be For those who don't know, Dr. Grande used to be an OG in this space, but now he basically does current events. He doesn't really talk about narcissism anymore. But several years ago, probably 3, 4 years ago now, he had a lot of videos about it, and I liked listening to him. But now he doesn't talk about that at all anymore. But the third way is they'll say that their friends have done something, or their coworkers have done something, or their family has done something. Can you believe what my coworkers do? They all cheat on their spouse. They get drunk and they cheat on their spouse. Can you believe it? Or can you believe they steal? Or can you believe that they look at underage nonsense? And those are the things to really watch out for, because, yeah, it means they're more than likely doing those things. And like I said, those uh, them saying what those other people are doing, it can get pretty dark. They can say some dark things. And I do often hear that with the gay thing too. I hear that. I'm not one of the people that thinks all narcissists are gay, but I do have heard many narcissists use that gay line and say, oh yeah, this person's gay, that person's gay. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure you're not the one? So I understand why some people think that about them, because some people do throw that accusation around. And if you ever question them about this too, like I said, they're not going to admit it. They're just going to either change the subject, say some word salad, dismiss, move the goalposts, flip the script back onto you, use some Darvo, deny, accuse, reverse victim and offender. Doesn't matter. They're going to do something to not own up to it, whatever it is. And then the fourth way is drinking or under the influence of something. So when they're drinking in particular, especially the more drunk they get, that mask will fall off and then you'll see what's underneath. And what's underneath that mask will not be very pretty. And then whatever they said while they were drunk, it's what they really meant. And often they maybe will tell you what they really think of you. They'll really tell you what they've also done or what they think of others. And that's something to not ignore. And again, don't let it fool you that when they're sober again, they deny it. No. They say a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts, and they say that for a reason. So I would definitely believe what they say while they're drinking. And then depending on the substance, some substances more than others. But it's trickier. It's trickier with substances because some substances like weed, some people smoke weed all day. Not even narcissists even, but some people can just smoke all day and that's just their normal. Their normal is altered. So then it's hard to say. And then some narcissists may drink all day too. And then in those cases, it's really only when they're drunk that you would really have to pay attention. If drinking is their normal, you probably won't notice it until they're a little past their normal place. Because if you drink every day, you got to drink just to get to a baseline. You're not drinking to get drunk. You drink at first, get to a baseline, and then you got to drink even more to get to a place where you actually feel it and you're drunk. When I used to go to AA and NA, those are the kinds of things you'd hear a lot. And I bet you in AA and NA, there's a lot of toxic folks in there. And the miraculous thing about it is some people do end up doing better. But I bet you there's narcissists there, borderlines there, people on the spectrum there, ADHD, other kinds of neurodivergence, bipolar, mood disorders, some schizo, you name it, they've got it there. And it's kind of miraculous that it even works as well as it does. But it does help. It does help some people. Now, granted, my problems with it is I don't like some of their mindset stuff. And like I said before, you become like the people you surround yourself with. And if you're going to be around a lot of people that are struggling a little bit, you can't be surprised if you start struggling a little bit too. You would have to have really clear boundaries because the whole program works because people that are doing better keep showing back up and they try to help the people that are new. And that does help the people that have been around for a while because they say you can only keep what you have by giving it away. And I think there's truth in that. But I would also say the older timers, as they call them, they have to be careful because if you start trying to help that person more than they're helping themselves, that's a problem. And that's where I learned my rules for helping people anyway. They would say you should only ever match someone's effort. If you do more than match, you have to check your motives. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing more than this person is willing to do for themselves? And if you genuinely ask that question of yourself, you'll get some interesting answers if you're genuine and you're honest in your answers. But if you're an older timer, like I said, you got to make sure you have some boundaries in those places, because if you get too involved in their lives, it's more likely they suck you down than you bring them up. But my point of saying all of this is it's a hodgepodge of stuff, but the 12 steps, if people write on those 12 steps, I'm all for people doing that, because I think the level of self-awareness you can get from doing that is absolutely priceless. And I think everybody could benefit from doing that, addict or not, they could benefit. And I think it's one of those things that changed my life doing that. And like I said, I eventually moved on from that, but it was super helpful. My father celebrated 39 years sober last November. AA was his, yeah. I mean, and those are stories I've heard a lot. And people mix up, they'll say, well, this one person in AA did this. This one person in NA did that. And I would say, well, AA and NA, the principles are the principles. They're not wrong. The principles aren't wrong, but imperfect people can mess things up, as any imperfect person can, whether it's in a religion, AANA, spirituality. Principles are principles. They're good. But I've seen a lot of people that have turned their lives around in NA and AA. And that's one of the reasons I have the nuance I do with saying some people can improve. But I get it. A lot of people don't like me saying that. So I've pumped the brakes on that, as they say. Because it kind of, and I get, because when people are first leaving a toxic relationship, there's not as much room for the nuance when you're first leaving, right? And I think people that have been out of these situations for a while, yeah, they can develop more nuance down the line once they're in a safer place. But if someone's just getting out, yeah, I agree. That's not the time for nuance for them. They need things more black and white at that time, because they're holding on for dear life just to not go back. They're holding on for dear life to avoid the Hoovers and to not go back to the trauma bond. So yeah, in those cases, you absolutely have to see it how you have to see it. And that's similar to AA and NA too, where especially in the beginning, a lot of them in AA, they'll really demonize drinking and they'll act like drinking's like the devil and poison. And they kind of have to see it that way in the beginning, because if they didn't, they would want to do it themselves. They would want to do it themselves. And that's, time goes on and people often adjust how they see it, but that's how they had to see it in the beginning. And I'm someone now, I'm years removed. So I have to be careful to remember what it was like in the very beginning, because being years removed, I'll sometimes say how I think of things now, but how I think of things now isn't how everyone's going to see it. And this is what I've seen a lot of people do in the space too, honestly. People that, some of the creators that I would consider a little narcissistic, honestly. There are people that they'll start off talking about narcissism, and then down the line, all of a sudden they turn and they're like, no, I think that's terrible to be talking about that stuff. And they need to be where I am now. And it's like, dude, it took you years to get to where you are now. And you're going to act like they should skip all the work you did and to get to where you are. And then I would also say, however you got to where you are, I would also question that too. If you're going to be so controlling with how you see it now, the correct way to go, I think, is you have some humility with it. Okay, this is how I see it now, but I fully admit there's a process involved and people are not going to see it that way instantly. But some people forget that. Some people forget that, and they really want people to see it how they see it down the line. And it's like, why? Why do you want them to see it that badly? They have to go through a process just like you did. So much respect for anyone choosing healing. Programs like AA and NA offer hope, structure, and community. Yeah, and that's the pillars. The pillars of something like AA and NA sponsorship, service, community, and overall, just in regard to a happy life. Those are very important things. I mean, set aside even the drinking and drug part and higher power part, but just having a sponsor, trying to help out others, having a community of people with a like-minded goal, that's the ingredients. Those are the ingredients of a healthy life. And especially now in this social media era where so many people just spend hours and hours on their phones. And granted, I'm guilty. I'm absolutely guilty of that. I don't do as much with in person with people as I used to. And I think that's probably true for most people, honestly. I think most people are probably scrolling more, and social media has almost turned into a hobby for a lot of people. But even so, AA and NA, they offer the way. They offer you, okay, it's a group, it's a community. I can get in service. I can try to help people and be a little less self-centered. It's a good rule, good rules of thumb for anyone to try to live by, honestly. And it'd be good for people that don't struggle with addiction to find things similar. And you do see things similar. You'll see that in jujitsu communities or CrossFit communities or a yoga studio or fill in the blank. But granted, just because you go to a community doesn't mean it's going to be narcissist exempt. Narcissists will often be in these communities as well. It doesn't mean the whole group is poison. It just means that, okay, this person here, and it gets tricky because you'll see them in yoga, for example. There'll be people that you would think, oh, this person's gone to yoga for decades. They must be really spiritually whole and emotionally regulated and emotionally mature. And then lo and behold, it's like, oh no, actually, it's more of a spiritual narcissist type. You know it, Ellie. Excellent points about the value of healing groups offline. Structure and community are vital. Absolutely. That's what religion used to be for people, honestly. That was really one of the only ways to do it back in the day. Was there was religion. And there was, of course, fights over what religion, but maybe it was Catholic, maybe it's Protestant, maybe it's Islam, maybe it's Judaism, whatever it was. But that was one of the few options for community back in the day. But now we have so many options now. We probably have options overload. We have options paralysis where we don't even stop to think like, oh, we have so many options that we just don't. But I think the other thing that gets in the way for people is their finances. So their finances can get in the way and they have other responsibilities and they'll think, well, I don't have enough time. And I admit time is a premium. Time is one of those resources you're never going to get back. And especially if you have a family, time is hard to come by. Yeah, and that's what you see with dating stuff for people too. That's what women would say on dating apps a lot of times. They get so many swipe rights, but then there's just too many choices. And you're like, oh my God, how do I sift through all of these? Men generally have different problems for the most part on dating apps, but too many options can cause different struggles. And I think that's an interesting thing to go over too. Just the other kinds of communities that are out there. I mentioned jiu-jitsu. I mentioned CrossFit. Even YouTube, to an extent here, is a community for people. Like I call myself the shepherd of black sheep. Black sheep are very welcome here. And even just talking to people in a comment section, it's cool. It's similar to what people do on Reddit. It's similar to what people do in some Facebook groups, perhaps. But it's nice to see actually someone talking that you can talk to, for one. The only other place that really happens is TikTok. Facebook Live isn't really that big of a thing. Instagram Live isn't really that big of a thing. But TikTok Live is. And so is YouTube Live, of course, here too. But, the other thing I wanted to talk about. The P. Diddy trial. And apparently with the P. Diddy trial, it reminded me of Iceberg Slim's quote. Iceberg Slim had a quote, "Justice has a blindfold because, as he knows it now, her eyeballs are really dollar signs." And I think that's an important thing to know because it's true. You get the amount of justice you can afford in this country a lot of times. And it's not even about gender. It's not about race. It's about what's your wealth and power. If you got a certain level of wealth and power, you can get away with things. And so I don't know. I'm seeing people talk about the amount of men and women jurors. There was 8 men and 4 women. The main thing is to keep in-person meeting and doing life and healing as necessary sacred too. Yeah, and it has to be a priority for people. If it's not a priority, they're not going to do it. And that's one of my favorite things to say to people if they say they don't have time. You say, fill it in with actually, it's not a priority, because that's more accurate. Everyone has the same 24 hours. Okay? If you say, I don't have time, what you're really saying is, it's not a priority, because your priorities are what you do. Regardless of what you say, and this is true for all of us, regardless of what we say, what we do, that's what our priorities are. For example, people who have a job, they go to their job, and that's how they spend a certain amount of time. But that's their priority. They are going to their job to make money, and they are there. And then outside of that, there's a cascading effect of, okay, what are the rest of my priorities? Well, I have to spend certain time eating because everyone needs food and water. But then what else do you do? Is it the gym? Is the gym part of your priorities? And what you begin to notice is you run out, right? So you have to choose. Oh, what are my priorities? You either have to be a superhero in time management, or you really have to be deciphering what your priorities are. My priorities: gym, social media content, reading. Those are my big 3, really. I need to do better with in-person interactions because I just don't do it as much anymore. And some of it is when your friends are married and they have kids and they're in a different circumstance. That's part of it. But part of that can just be an excuse too. Being in the doing, being present, making space for relating. Yeah, if it's a priority. If it's a priority, we will. No one needs to match someone else's timeline in order to matter. Progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just choosing not to give up today. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think one small step at a time, or sometimes just not going backwards, right? I think, and those little sayings, I know some people don't like the little sayings, but I like them. Things like this too shall pass. I really like that. I think small improvements, I really like that. I think no improvement is too small. It's part of the reasons why I carry the wands around all the time, because the wands are a reminder to myself and others that the little things in life matter. If we can't do the little things right, we're not going to be able to do the big things right. But I like that. Just read it again. No one needs to, yeah, because we're all on our own timeline. Like, not everyone, we don't have to compare. As Teddy Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. Or the other expression, that's the other one you made me think of, is sometimes the hollowest drum makes the loudest noise. The hollowest barrel, the emptiest barrel makes the loudest noise. What do you think that means? I broke up with him 5 months ago, still feeling terribly heartbroken, wondering when the pain and dreams will end. Well, a couple questions about that. Have you seen him since? Have you slept with him since? Have you had any contact with him since? Because my opinion on the matter is, every time you sleep with someone, the process resets. And then it's still difficult, though, even if it's just texting or talking on the phone. In person's even more so. But all it took for me for the trauma bond to stay alive was for this person to be liking my posts. That's all it took for it to stay alive, because it gave me that little hit of approval. I really wanted her love and approval, and that's all it took to stay alive. Now, it can take various amounts of time depending on how long the relationship was. How long was the relationship? Thank you, Ellie. Rewind. So you're no contact. But that's good though. So if you've been no contact 5 months, it'll get better slowly but surely. There's no contact, no texting, no phone calls, no nothing. You got to think of it like this. Each passing day, you'll get better and better. Every day, in every way, I get better and better. And I'm big into saying those affirmations too. Whatever the things that you're struggling with most, write it down 15 times, the opposite. And then slowly but surely, you'll start building up towards something else. Now, it might be necessary to go to EMDR. It might be necessary to do some sort of other trauma therapy. If no contact isn't working, those are things I would suggest too. Other goals, working towards other goals, making sure that no other addictions are in play because they can kind of keep us stuck too. And dropping an addiction can be addition by subtraction is what I like to call it. And there could also be mental health stuff going on too. In my coaching program, addiction and mental health, they have to be looked at first, because if those two things are not being looked at, they can sabotage the rest of the process. If someone's really struggling with anxiety or depression, can't get out of bed, well, that's going to be a problem. If someone's drinking all day, every day, that's going to be a problem. Now, granted, people who are drinking all day, every day aren't usually getting coaching. That's true too. But those are things to put down. Now, in terms of the rest of it though, building up hobbies, trying to work on relationships with friends, building a life you enjoy without somebody else. And that's easier said than done, no doubt, but that's the way to go. Thank you, Ellie. I can set out to do something, and every time I do, my lovely cell phone won't connect to the website or phone calls, etc. And it's very frustrating when it's the exact thing I need to do to heal. So what do you mean? When you're out and about, what websites are you trying to connect to? In that case, I would say, I don't know where you're located, but try to upgrade to the best cell phone provider, because I wouldn't like that very much either. I mean, I pay for the upgraded juice here from home because I don't want to have any of those downfalls. 1.5 years. What's 1.5 years? That's how long the relationship was. It's what they say about that is half the time of the relationship, and that's for a normal relationship though. So 1.5 years, they would say half the time. So that's 9 months. But if it's a narcissistic relationship, that's not a normal breakup. That's not a normal breakup. That's a trauma bond. And if it's not a normal breakup, I could say it might take even longer. It just depends. But it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to take a set amount of time. Like, I wouldn't say, even when someone says half the amount of time of a relationship, if someone thinks that, it becomes more likely to be true. And it might very well be true for some people, but it doesn't have to be true. But regardless of that, it's your timeline. And everyone's timeline is going to be different. It's whatever works for you. Of course, Rhodes. All roads lead to the wizard of radical self-respect, I've heard they say. Good. Well, I try to help people on these live streams here to give past some of the things I've learned along the way, because yours truly has been through a lot of windy roads, ups and downs and lefts and rights in many areas. So there's a lot of things I've been through myself. So I'm well versed in a lot of these things. Baby steps for the win, Ellie Win. My doc, meds, therapist. I mean, those things are extremely important. Do you do that all remotely? Yeah, I mean, all three of those are extremely important, because I guess you have to see the doctor to get meds, because therapists don't. generally prescribe meds unless it's a nurse practitioner or something. I've changed so many times. It's great. Are you in America or are you somewhere else? Because depending on where you are in America, sometimes there can be some bad connections for sure. And some service providers not as good as others. I'm a Verizon person. Verizon, where I am in New Jersey, not bad. Not bad for the most part. But there's still some glitches. There's still some down zones. I have no car. I have been dependent on him. Yes, great USA. I mean, and that's one of the harder situations, no doubt. Like, just as I say, trying to co-parent with one, which is counter-parenting, that's one of the harder ones. Being financially dependent, that's one of the other hard one, because so what do you do? What do you do in those cases? I would say you have to check for resources in your area. There might be, depending on your area. There could be something that could help you get back on your feet. But it would require you to somehow, I don't know how old you are, but if working is an option, trying to work. If you're not, I know someone was telling me the other day, they're 65 in this position. And I was like, yeah, that's a tough spot, because most people are not getting new jobs at 65. So, I mean, sometimes I don't even know what to say, because you'd really have to examine the whole scenario and try to really break everything down and try to turn over every leaf to see what's possible. A major city. Okay. I'm close to a few major cities, and I would say maybe developing friends. Developing friends. I don't know if you have a family around as well. Probably not. But friends can be the family we choose for ourselves. And because rather than just being stuck, it's like, okay, maybe try. What's the other option, right? To give up. I have a hard time telling someone to do that, but I'll validate that it's extremely difficult. 1000% is extremely difficult, but I'm very hesitant to say something's impossible. Your conversation with Dr. Simon in Salerno is now one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time. How about? Thank you very much. I'll have to show Dr. Simon and Dr. Salerno this. They will love it. What was your favorite part of it, by the way? Because I have to go back. I'll probably clip some up. I can't clip it up in shorts for YouTube because the way it's formatted, it's not going to look right. But I'll make like some shorter clips of it that are longer videos that are just not shorts. But I really appreciate you saying that. It's honestly okay. I am in a losing battle. A difficult battle, I will say. But it doesn't have to be a lost battle. Losing, but not quite lost, perhaps. But again, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of the situation, so it's hard for me to say. I mean, chances are you tell me the whole situation, I'll say, yeah, that's a hell of a spot. But the only kind of mindset trick I have for that is to do one small thing a day. To think of one small thing a day to do to try to improve your situation. And some of that starts with even trying to figure out what the goals could possibly be. What's the best case scenario? I don't know. The best case scenario really depends on what the scenario is. But you try to figure out realistically what the best case scenario is. And maybe the best case scenario is you can get out. And so, okay, that's good. That's a good best case scenario. And then you work towards that somehow. It's like I said, it's not going to be easy. When you're financially dependent like that, it's not going to be easy. I won't lie and say it's easy. It's going to be probably the most difficult thing you ever do. I'll just say I'm hesitant to say it's impossible. We'll put it like that. Well, we're coming up on about an hour here. They've become my two most favorite YouTube psychologists. Their philosophies resonate profoundly. Watching them interact was a true delight. I'm sure they'll love hearing that too, because Dr. Simon, he was the pioneer that people like Dr. Salerno really learned from. If it wasn't for Dr. Simon, there probably wouldn't be. You probably wouldn't know of Dr. Salerno. I wouldn't know of Dr. Salerno. But it helped Dr. Salerno see that Dr. Simon had the courage to break the mold here. And I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but Dr. Salerno gets a lot of grief for what he talks about. And some of the people, they really go out of their way to take him down. I'm not going to be specific about it, but that does happen. People get very emotionally attached to their belief sets. And if someone challenges their belief sets, they do not like it one bit. And with the narcissism piece, it's really two that really get people riled up. The one is that the genetic component is there, that needs to be there first. People really hate that one. I'm not even sure why. I truly don't understand why. I think for some of them, it's just they want to be able to play the victim and blame a bad upbringing. I think that's all it is. But some people who say they're victims, they're still upset about the genetic component. And I'm like, why? As a victim, why are you upset about it? Why would it matter for you? I don't get it. I truly don't get it. That whole thing. If someone is respectful on how they communicate to me, I never have a problem with what they say. I might be annoyed at people that are antagonistic with me, but just a different opinion, no. I mean, I've never had a problem with that. So, but some people really didn't like that he talks about that. And then other people really don't like that he said that some narcissists really do feel superior. Some people, they really need it to be, they feel insecure. They must be overcompensating for feelings of insecurity and inadequacy. They must have all this toxic shame. And sometimes, I think sometimes they do, but not all of the time. As Dr. George Simon would say, gotta not paint with that broad brush. I've recently read all of Dr. Simon's books. I'm profoundly grateful for his insights. Which one was your favorite? Because I've read In Sheep's Clothing, Character Disturbance, and 10 Essentials for Character. Those are the three I read of his. Dr. Salerno, I've read The Nature and Nurture of Narcissism, and I've read Traumatic Cognitive Dissonance, and he's got a few others that I have not read. One of them is Fit for Duty. Oh no, Fit for Off Duty. That's a book that's required, I think, in the FBI, that's a good accomplishment to have a book that's required reading by the FBI. And I think it's also required for police, perhaps, too. And then he's got one about mindset, the belief equation, I think it's called. And then there's one more that I can't remember the title. But Dr. Salerno has several books that I have not read. Yeah, I mean, and Dr. Simon, what I like about him in particular is he does not like to paint with the broad brush. He tries to cover all of his bases. So he'll say, yeah, not all narcissists are insecure, but some might be. Some might be overcompensating for insecurity. And to which I will agree with him. Yeah, some might be, but just not all. Not all. Some truly do think like their shit doesn't stink. I agree with Rhodes. The way they interacted was wonderful too. See, I enjoyed the interview very much too. I'm glad you liked it as well. I'm going to have Dr. Salerno back on. He's going to be on once every 4 to 6 weeks. That's the plan so far. So that interview was maybe only a week ago now. So in a few weeks, we'll have Dr. Salerno back on again. I'm trying to work on getting more guests on the show too. Marcella from Beyond the Bruise. I'm going to have her back on again. Been trying to get Sinful. Do you all know Sinful? Sinful's killing it on Instagram and Facebook, by the way. She's rocking and rolling on those platforms. But I'm going to try to get her on there. Yeah, you'll really appreciate his books, I think. You'll really like, because he's very concise, and it's very understandable. More Salerno indeed. He's going to be on. Don't worry. And then, yeah, Sinful. And Sinful said she would, but she's a pretty busy person. Marcella will certainly. There was another woman. She wanted me to pay her $500. I'm like, like I've never paid anyone to come on. Why am I going to start paying you to come on? I don't really like that. I'm like, you know what? Between all of my audiences, like, you should get it. Why am I going to pay you? You should pay me. But like, usually that's not how it works. Like usually it's a mutually beneficial thing. So we both do it. Now, granted, there's always going to be a power game in there too, where if someone thinks they're so much more above me, they'll think, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that because I'd be helping him too much. But then there's other people that are maybe way below me in popularity that maybe I would think the same. Like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't. But I don't usually think that way though. I think my goal is to have interesting discussions, no matter who they are and no matter how popular they are. That's how I try to do it. And that's what the dude from Soft White Underbelly, that's what he does. He's not concerned with their popularity. He gets interesting people and he wants interesting people to tell their stories. And I think that's awesome. There was a woman actually that I'm Facebook friends with. She was a guest on the show. Actually, multiple people now that I think of it. Gabby, I have a friend named Gabby. She was on his show a couple years back because she has agoraphobia and her husband was on with her. Haven't spoken to Gabby for a while. And then another friend of mine on Facebook, she was on recently. She was in the last month or so. She was on his show because she had struggled with addiction. And I was going to try to get her on the show too. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Salerno, he's the one that came up with that idea. He said, a lot of my audience likes it when you and I talk, so why don't we do this on a regular basis? And I said, sounds like a great idea. Because I know everyone that follows me, they really enjoy it too. So win-win. We've got to think of the next topic to go over with him. There's this guy I also interviewed named Dr. Mark Ettinson. He's kind of come at Dr. Salerno a little bit, except not by name. And what happened was he made a video about disputing the genetic component. And Dr. Salerno and I might do the same kind of thing that I did with Dr. Simon. I might invite them both on. Maybe. I might try to get Dr. Mark Ettinson individually first and then see, because I haven't spoken to Dr. Mark Ettinson in over a year. I wouldn't want to invite him back on directly into a debate. I don't think that would be the best idea. But it might be an interesting thing to talk about down the line. But all right, everyone. I'm getting tired. I'm winding down. But thanks all for your comments here. Thanks for participating and keeping me company here on this Wednesday evening. I appreciate it always. Always appreciate all your support. Appreciate the people that get coaching sessions with me too. You know who you are. And yeah, I think it's a good place to stop here for the night. So with that, over and out, everybody.